It is my pleasure to introduce you to J.R. Baguidy from our headquarters here in Washington, D.C. at the MBDA. He leads our export, import, and financing. His background is rich with experience with SBA, export, import. Shaq, better known as Shaq, and ladies and gentlemen, you have videos to look at on the IAEOZsummit.com to just get a background of folks that are now about to present to you. Shaquana, we thank you so much for being here, and also Melissa Muhammad. I would like for each one of you to introduce yourself in a very short manner, go around robin, and then let's go into some discussion that's deeper and driven in some measures by my questions. Thank you so much.
Mm-hmm.
Who wants to begin?
So we can go alphabetically. JR, you want to go first?
Sure. Good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Jean-Robert Baguidy, also known as J.R. Baguidy. I'm the Senior Business Development Specialist, also Senior Advisor for Capital Access, Domestic and International, and Global Markets. As Keith said, I've spent some time in the federal government working at SBA and the SBIC Venture Capital Division, and also 10 years at Export-Import Bank as a loan officer and running a regional office. And currently here at MBDA, help basically run the export centers. And of course, we have our connection with International Trade Administration, and we'll talk a lot about that later. But thank you.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Melissa Muhammad, and I am the founder and CEO of the Black and Global Business Network. So we are a network of a little over 6,000 Black-owned businesses that access government resources like MBDA to sell our products and services globally. I'm an international tax attorney, so I am a person who loves moving businesses around the world by structuring through different tax structures. I've worked in about 50 countries and trained tax officials in about 153 nations around the globe. And we have quite a few businesses that have been successful in helping using U.S. government resources to sell globally and helping businesses with U.S. market entry strategies.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Shaquana Teasley. My colleagues know me as Shaq. I am the founder and CEO of Agate Solutions. Agate is spelled like Agate, A-G-A-T. We are subject matter experts in international trade policy, regulations, and customs compliance. So we are an accredited education institute. We also offer a robust curriculum in regard to an end-to-end solution in manufacturing, sourcing, freight forwarding, international trade regulations, how to import your goods. We are also customs experts and licensed customs brokers, so we can clear your goods into the U.S. as well. We partner with several government agencies, both domestically and abroad, to ensure compliance in international trade. We're mostly known for our international trade strategies, where we increase profit margins and recover duty. We've currently recovered approximately $30 million in duty over the last few years. My passion is international trade, and I'm happy to be here. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, as you can see, you have a panel of experts. So why don't we kick this off by asking what we've asked throughout the promotion of the IAEOZ. Melissa, why Africa for you and your organization? Why Africa?
Sure. So we are, as Black people in America and part of the diaspora, we are very focused on being that sixth region. And we fundamentally believe that our lives, our destinies, and our growth are linked to Africa. With the 54 countries there, all of our businesses. Now, let me be clear, we do business all over the world, but all of them are keenly focused on doing business in Africa. And when we were there this past year, we went to South Africa, Nigeria, and Ghana. We formed partnerships with over 10 different trade associations because our businesses were very keen and focused on doing business in Africa. And last year, our entire year focused on training our businesses to be able to come onto the continent and find partners in different parts of the world, in different countries there. So it is a keen focus and strategy for us. They have the youngest population on the planet. The technology is amazing. Our Black and Global's outreach director is based in Rwanda, and she's a 24-year-old young Black woman that works for our company, and she handles our outreach strategy around the world. So she is our avatar for the talent that we believe that is there. And we're just excited for the opportunity for our businesses to be able to access those resources.
Shaq, why Africa? And because I think you've touched upon it in our previous conversation, but wanting the audience to hear from you, why Africa, and what is your experience of the number one or two challenges that keep people from being successful, and it becomes a challenge in Africa to do business because of? Those are two-part question for you. Why
So
Africa?
first, when people ask me why Africa, my first thought is, why not Africa? I'm a Black woman, right? That's the motherland. That's where we originated. And Africa has had many challenges over the decades, over the centuries. And Africa needs a great deal of support from the diaspora to be able to leverage trade. So Africa in regard to international trade is a passion project for me, because I know that under AGOA, there are many exporters and businesses on the continent that just don't know how to leverage AGOA. If you're not familiar with AGOA, it is the African Growth Opportunity Act. It is a trade agreement between the US and some countries in Africa. This policy and within the trade agreement is complex, so it is complicated. And it's very important that the exporters on the ground have the type of support that they need from an expert to be able to help them overcome barriers and be competitive globally. So we don't just do business in Africa. Just like Melissa mentioned, we are heavily focused on the Caribbean, India, and some Asian countries as well. But distinct to Africa, it just needs so much attention, because there's African manufacturers and suppliers that can't be competitive globally because they don't know how to leverage the trade agreements that they have. So exporters are manufacturing products or even agricultural products, and they're attempting to import them into the United States. However, they don't understand the government complexities like FDA, EPA, et cetera, including customs, to be able to overcome those barriers. You'll be surprised how many goods successfully leave the border and an export out of the region and are being returned to origin. And as you can imagine, it is extremely expensive to return goods back to origin. So those are the challenges that I see, understanding trade agreements and AGOA, also the compliance of federal regulations and customs compliance.
JR, you've just heard from two experienced persons, from one more from a tax perspective and the other from a export-import compliance perspective. And I mean, you and I have known each other for quite some time, and in fact, a very long time. And you've been here with us from the beginning of the IAEOZ summit. From an MBDA perspective, and you can even insert the new MOU between ITA and MOU, you've been around long enough. Why Africa? And in the context of what you've just heard, how important is it for us to put together programs, curriculum, training pathways, because this is a problem for the export import and the financing of projects?
Right, right. So we have to hit on a couple points. So first of all, we know that, there's only a small amount of companies that are even engaged in exporting in the United States. It's like, I don't know, 2-3%, something like that. And so not so many people are in it, and there's various reasons why. But for people of color and minorities, there is an advantage there just because of historical diaspora ties and language, and the ability to just do business in another language in another country. So there is, advantages, and there are opportunities, especially in Africa. There's huge opportunities. I mean, we're the last ones that are there. A lot of the Chinese are there, and they really there's the connection there. There's the diaspora connection. So aside from the regulatory and the taxes, which is a hurdle as well, then you have the financing as well. So you've got a couple things that you have to deal with. At our agency, at Commerce, we're really trying to move the needle, trying to get more MBEs involved in exporting. But there's a lot that comes along with that. I mean, it's great to go on the trade missions and all that, but it's a lot of work behind the scenes. And so, if you really want to be successful in the global marketplace, I mean, you have to know all the different angles, and you have to have the market research, where to go. You have to know the obstacles, the regulations, what's going on. You don't want to, like Shaq said, you don't want to send your goods and then have them stuck at the pool, have them report either stuck there or returned, because then that's just more money, and that's into your bottom line. And then, of course, the access to capital, access to financing. We know it's hard domestically. Now we're going to talk about internationally. Banks don't really want to be involved in this. However, with the government help, with the Exim Bank Guarantee or DFC, Development Finance Corp, or any of the other ones that will come in and kind of take away that bank risk for Exim Bank, whether it be credit insurance, that could be up to 95% coverage, or on a medium-term transaction, 85%. At financing terms that are not really available in the local market. So there's an advantage there in terms of trying to penetrate the market with American goods. But you have to know these things in advance before you go into the market. Also at MBDA, obviously, we're part of Commerce, and the ITA, as about before, they have a plethora of information, market information, trade missions. The U.S. Commercial Foreign Service falls under ITA, the U.S. Export Assistance Centers as well. And then also we have something going on right now, the Global Export Diversity Initiative, and it's so focused on minority and MBEs, entering into the global marketplace. So there's opportunities there for sure, but as I always say, where there's opportunities, there's also obstacles. So I'll pause there.
JR, you mentioned a percentage. You say 2% or 3%?
Something like that. It's very low. It's very low. And then out of that percentage, it's mainly larger companies, because the other thing is that when you're in international business and doing export, you have to wait to get paid. A lot of times it's not, cash. If you can get cash in advance, get it. But more times than not, you will be expected to provide some sort of financing. So, that has to be taken into account. I mean, we already know that smaller companies have to wait to get paid under, and that, Keith, for government contracts, there's a time lag. And so you can imagine that time lag plus going international, sending, your goods overseas. So that's another thing you have to consider.
Ladies and gentlemen, we talked earlier this morning about equity, access, and literally abundance. And the pathway to abundance and opportunity in Africa, to me, has, and this is really the basis of why we're here. We believe at the Federal Procurement Center and KDM, who's been working in the government contracting sector for 23 years, acknowledges the fact that if we can get minority businesses, small and emerging, to win contracts successfully, then they grow their business. They grow their revenue, They grow their confidence in being able to deliver services, especially internationally. They become risk mitigators or risk mitigated. They mitigate their risks because they have the staff, they have the revenue, they have the past performance. Additionally, and as a result of our partnership with the National Minority Supplier Diversity Council, we do know that getting a certification as a small, emerging, and a minority-owned business, coupled with an NMSDC certification, increases your global link capacity to be successful, because to a corporation, you're more risk mitigated because you have that past performance. You have that ability to show ability to manage a company and have an infrastructure and those critical things that are in place. So this conversation needs to be interpreted like this. You have experts who are in compliance. You have experts who are in tax, the tax nuances. And you have a government representative who's been in small business administration, export, import, international trade, even the World Bank, where both public policy and the regulations are all aligned. So, is there anything missing? We often say, IAEOZ, the only thing missing is you. What questions do you have for this panel? What comments do you have for this panel? And I want to go back to asking Melissa from a standpoint of, can you describe a success story, and can you describe a story that you definitely want this audience to stay away from, to be aware of, to not have to experience, because you're sharing that with us?
Wow. I mean, that's a lot. So first, I love international. I love international business, international trade, international tax, because only 95% of the market is here in the U.S. Only 5% of the market is here in the U.S. and 95% of the market is around the world. So there's an opportunity to do business, and I like to say that we don't have to have this or that. It can be this and that. It doesn't have to be either or. It can be either and. And so you can do business domestically and you can do business internationally. We always say easy is not what we do on this end. We build systems that are repeatable because fortunately we are able to help our businesses go and start in one country and then move to the next and to the next and to the next. So I don't want people to think that this process is easy, but it is very lucrative, and it is generational wealth. Because one of the great things as you build a business around the world is relationships are so key and fundamental. And once you start, you get that contract in another country and you start delivering and you jump the hoops, then oftentimes you're able to have that contract for a very extended period of time. So it really will change your business strategy if you have both domestic and international. And that's going in both directions. That's coming, going from the US to other countries and other countries coming into the US. Success stories. So, I choose one from this year, though I'm really happy to say we've had quite a few success stories, like a hair care company selling her products into Kenya, meeting with the retail stores. And it was so interesting to see the American products on the shelves in these different retailers in the malls, and to be able to help her to place her products on those shelves, was really an amazing opportunity. Was it easy? No, because it's hair care products. You got to jump the medical requirements. All of it depends on what country. We were also doing the same in Canada. So there are always a lot of hurdles to jump. But my favorite story from this year, I'm going to continue to focus on because she really has become an avatar in my heart. You know, she's a very successful company domestically, an example of what I was speaking of. And when she went to the different government offices that JR spoke about, they told her no for everything. No, we can't assist you. No, we do not help businesses like yours. No, your product, your service will not sell in another country. No, the people on post in that country will not know how to find you buyers. No, you can't go on the trade mission. And no, you cannot get the STEP grant. So, and we had worked with her for a number of months. So, you know, my head spun when, you know, this is what we got back. And fortunately, she CC'd me on these emails. So we, of course, reached out to the different offices here and the headquarters. And so we got an official apology for that because we, you know, they said we were wrong. Her services are exportable. That the post will be able to assist her, that she can go on the trade mission and she can get the STEP grant. And when she got in country, they gave her 40 buyers. And so she has been able to sell her product, her services into 3 countries. And in addition to that, expand her US-based business because now she can service internationally. So was it easy? No. It was definitely not easy. And so when you ask what would I like for people to avoid, I would like for them to avoid the mindset of running away from obstacles. I would like them to avoid running away from difficulty because that is going to happen. You have to know in business that these are the doors, but to get 40 buyers to buy from you after, you know, going through such a hurdle. And when I tell you she was not going to be turned back, when I tell you she was not going to be denied, and fortunately we were on the ground in country, and we were able to support her to be able to make sure she got the assistance that she needed. But, you know, now she is definitely a person who can be a great testimony to using these government resources and how they can support you.
Amen to that. Shaquana, I want to ask you this question from the chat. Exporting is one of the major obstacles we face. This is from Gabriel out of Omaha, who's originally from Sierra Leone. It's the number one, exporting is the number one major obstacle we face in Sierra Leone, from cocoa to diamonds to handcrafted, authentic items. I have thousands of farmers, laborers, and skilled craftspersons who have no way to get their items to the global market without essentially being exploited by those who come from other countries and buy the unrefined goods at pennies on a dollar. We want to change. How can we help this situation, Shaq?
Well, it sounds like they first need education because people, what I'm learning is that businesses that are exporting out of Africa, it is very common for them to be able to, I'm just trying to mute the background. I don't know if you guys can hear that noise. Okay, I think that's better. So I think that it's common for African exporters to have this challenge. And often when I talk to them, they are getting resources to learn how to export their goods out of the region, but they don't have the necessary tools or resources to import into the US market. So I don't know if that's been her challenge. I think I heard I see in the chat that they're having the challenge of the challenge, but I don't actually, nothing tells me where is the problem exactly in regard to why this is happening. So if they need training and education on what the requirements are to import into the US market, is that the issue? Are they having customs issues, compliance issues, regulatory issues? Do they not understand AGOA, or are they having issues understanding policy? Is it documentation? Is it that they can't even export it at all out of the country? It just depends on what exactly is the root of the problem.
So, JR, on a scale of 1 to 10, and this is not putting you on the spot because I share the same stage with you from a commerce perspective. On a scale of 1 to 10, historically speaking, because you've been around a very long time, how on a scale of 1 to 10, how well are we doing with capacity building, training before folks get onto a trade mission? That, and in the spirit of everything that you've just heard,
There's still a gap, just like in terms of financial literacy, but it's, I guess, export readiness, getting ready to be ready to export. One of the things that I realized when I was at Export Import Bank is that some companies, it may be easier to make that transition if they're already successfully doing business domestically, and then making the switch into international is not, it's not that bad because they're already in that business. So it's, learning how to go international and all the little things that we talked about. And then there's other opportunities where it could be a one-off. It could be a purchase order. It could be an opportunity that happens, just a one-off thing. And so, you can get financed at. There are folks that'll finance SBA. I mean, if you can qualify, but there's that. And then also with the with the internet, it's made it a lot easier in terms of the communications and meetings and everything. You still have to travel to the market, but in terms of how we're doing, it's, we still have some work to do.
well, I would say that is an understatement, and given the percentages that you just talked about. And if we look at and we throw into the executive order 13985, doesn't ITA have the same responsibility as to have an equity plan and to contribute to the 15% requirement of all total acquisitions? That includes export import dollars, no?
Exactly. Yeah, it does. It does. So as I said, we still have more work to do to educate the general public, to get people just to, think about it. Some people just never thought about it. Businesses never thought about going into exporting. We have export centers, specialty centers, Miami, San Antonio, Houston. Houston's very active in Africa. Actually, they got the Exim Bank regional export promotion partner this year. And then also
In
there's
2024 or 2023?
2024. Yeah,
Oh,
they got it this year,
coming
and I
up.
was there.
Okay. Okay.
No, that it passed already. They had the conference, so she won it.
Okay.
Lisa Phillip.
Cool.
And then
Yeah.
we're trying to get the advanced manufacturing centers into the exporting because they have specialized machinery and equipment that can be exportable. So it's raising the level of awareness and getting people comfortable, and then understanding the market. ITA can help out with all that. They do a really good job with the country commercial guide. If you're interested in exporting to a particular region, they do a deep dive on the market conditions, the government, the banking relationships, the agencies that are available. So all the information is there. But it's not easy, but if you're persistent and diligent, it can be very, very lucrative.
Can I add something to that?
Keith, can I? Oh, go
Yes,
ahead.
please. Go ahead, Shaq.
So I want to say that I recently wrapped up Export Tech. I don't know if you all are familiar with that. I'm sure JR is. Export Tech with a partnership with ITA, International Trade Administration, and the Commercial Service, where we taught exports for a series of small and medium-sized businesses in the U.S. to help them understand what export regulations are, how to be in compliance. And I just want to add that there is a phased approach to exporting out of the U.S. I just want to say that in that approach, it does require commodity-specific approaches because every product is not the same. I've worked in Department of Defense articles for a very long time in some very specialized areas. So depending on what your product is, you can be regulated by the Department of State. You can be regulated by the State Department licensing requirements, EAR, ITAR requirements, OFAC. It can get extremely complicated. But then you do have some commodities that are more simplistic and are not as challenging as others. So it's not a one size fit all. So when people ask questions of, just tell me really quick, the top 5 steps to export, what I might advise Melissa may not be what I advise JR. So I want to caution people as you attempt to export out of the U.S. market, that you want to make sure that you are being very forthcoming with your commodity, your bill of materials in the particular in special areas, right? I'm not saying to everyone. I'm talking about when you're working with government or an expert to help you do that so that they understand the essential character of your goods and can advise you of regulatory requirements, because you don't want to find yourself being fined, penalized, your products being seized, or you can restrict it to export, losing that ability to be able to import and export, because it is definitely a privilege and not a right. So I just wanted to add that point. And it's been really fun, literally fun, working with these small and medium-sized businesses, because it's been an eye-opening experience for them. You'd be surprised how many people have struggled on the domestic side and been very successful internationally, right, Melissa? Right.
Yes,
So I've worked with clients that have struggled like you wouldn't believe, just getting product from LA to New York and hitting that market and seeing a revenue generating success, and then being able to go to Ghana, or I'm just making up any country abroad, and it'd be a boom for them. And the same thing applies in Africa, because we have what's called AFCA, like the African Continental Free Trade Area, which is the first time ever a trade agreement within the continent of Africa, so they can trade with each other duty free. And there's often businesses right there on the continent that are attempting to trade with each other. And then once they find that right partnership, I think Melissa made a good point earlier about all the different countries she touches and all the businesses and the examples that she gave, because you would be surprised the impact that can be made just by the right expert. The right type of expert that can actually help you come over those barriers and help you see your profit margins increase greatly. And lastly, I want to say, and the key to that also for both the import side and the export side, is you want to be attractive to buyers. People think that they are attractive to buyers by the type of product they have only. They focus heavily on the quality of the product or reducing their manufacturing spend, when a lot of time when it's international, what makes you more attractive is the ability to leverage trade agreements and reduce your duty spend, which overall is a win for everyone in regard to making your profit margins change. Thank you.
And may I add, Keith, one point? Before I move too
please.
far away from the question, that so it's a little bit, going backwards, that Shaq was addressing earlier about the farming. So I wanted to share something that we're doing in country, because agriculture, agribusiness is huge on the continent. So one of the projects that we are doing quite, I'm happy about. I'm happy about a lot of the work we're doing. And you spoke about having a lot of different farmers that have products on in Sierra Leone, I think it was, like cocoa, and being exploited and not being able to export the product. So we work with a country where we designed a program for farming. And the key is this: you take small farmers and you put them together to become commercial farmers or industrial farmers. And the way that we're doing that is that we work with Black farmers here in the US. And we put the training program together for the Black farmers to be in country and to train. And here's my key: for 175 days, because at 183, you trip a tax and treaty wire, right? So we make sure that you are protected on that end. So to put industrial farmers from here on the ground there, to be able to take the skills and talents that we have developed in the US, to be able to help them to develop their farming program, taking many farmers, putting them into one commercial farming program, now working with that entire group to be able to export into the US. So when you're looking at coming to the US, I think maybe if you think about working collectively like that, and then maybe taking a pilot where you work with, 100, however many farmers you want to work with, and then finding a way to be able to bring Black farmers there, they're very eager to come and support and help to train. And then once you start to export, then you can expand and replicate that type of service. But we found that to be quite successful.
Your hands up from USDA, and I want you to chime in. I am electrified by the nature of this discussion because it's filled with competency, experience, levels of humility and confidence combined, because there's a passion behind not wanting folks to have to go through a nightmarish experience. And I could say the same thing from a government contracting perspective. And that is exactly why we don't mind being disruptive, working outside of the box, expanding the box, and knowing that the traditional has not worked as much as we can incorporate innovation and technology and AI and digitalization to make what needs to work become what works. So with hands raised, Derek, I do want to go to you because here's what I've been inspired by with this discussion. Ladies and gentlemen in Africa, build a consortium. Use this platform of those of you who are in Africa to stay together, build a community, know your respective sectors that you're in, know your size, scope, and scale, your limitations, and your challenges. We can best here help a consortium more so than we can help one individual business. And so I expect by tomorrow at the close to hear from EmpowerWorks, to hear from Timothy, that we've created a trajectory of something new. And I tell you what, when the spirit hits, that's when you strike. And so that's what's happening here. Derek, let me ask you, what are you saying in the spirit of our HBCUs getting this exposure at the age in the classroom, because we need that workforce. And I was with Shaq down in Atlanta, and we were having lunch at an event. And, I'm shocked being in Atlanta with 5 HBCUs and her expressing the disconnect between HBCU students and the global marketplace. That has to stop. And it needs to stop now and here. And I think we created an opportunity to do so. So, Derek, what's on your question list? Mine, comments? Derek from USDA, I think you had your hand up. I think you still do have your hand up. It may be an old hand if you're with us. Melvin, you had a question?
Yeah, that was from a prior question. Yeah, I have a question about services. What if you're delivering services, or are services considered exports? For example, our company, we do K through 12 career discovery and workforce development in AI and cyber. We definitely want to go international because we're presenting an esports league in Africa, but help me understand, are services considered exports? And I would assume you don't have to deal with the product issues, stopped and those types of things, but it would seem like it's a better path to present something to Africa in reference to doing business.
May I take that one, start, Keith?
Please.
That's one of my favorite questions, because our service companies are the first ones that typically disqualify themselves mentally, because they assume that they cannot access government resources to export their services. So the answer is yes, services can be exported. 85% of the services have to be performed by a U.S. person. The example of the company that I provided you earlier that was told all of those no's is a service business. And we have quite a few service businesses that export. We have them in education tech. When you're talking about esports, like we have a company that did start an esports league in another country, one that exported training curriculum for after school at libraries, museums. So services are extremely exportable. We have even down to like graphic designs. When we see the level of requests, right? Because one of the things we do when we go on these trade missions and we form partnerships with groups in other countries is we're looking for projects, right? We're always looking for projects, because we've been on Exim Bank's Small Business Committee for a couple of years now. So we're always looking for bankable projects and forming partnerships to be able to close contracts. At Black and Global, we're mainly lawyers. We're international tax, corporate lawyers, international CPAs. So we're the paperwork people. We like to close deals and paper them. And so as our businesses, we're always surprised at the level of services, like things that they will send us to say, Melissa, we're looking to buy this. We need to buy that. Like one country, we got 63 pages of requests of purchases from, and 30% of those were for services. And I'm talking website design, graphic design, cybersecurity. That is ginormous. In May, the U.S. Commercial Services had 79 cybersecurity experts from around the world to come to San Francisco to meet with businesses who provide cybersecurity services in order to sell their cybersecurity services around the world. And they reach out to us and say, Melissa, do you have cybersecurity companies that can provide these kind of services? We would be interested in them participating. So the short answer is services. We have great success with services. They're very exportable.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Melissa. Shaq, any add-on to that comment before I go right back to Derek? I want to understand if Derek has a comment on this conversation, because this really, to me, connects back to the HBCU and the land grants specifically.
No, I think Melissa did a great job answering that question. And
She
I agree with her
actually did.
And I agree
She
with her
did.
100%. I'm a service-based business, and I export my services every day. So I agree with everything she said.
Right. So, JR, you're a witness. And ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to tell you with excitement that JR in 2020 of October was on a panel with the PJ Haney. And Melvin, I've asked you to somehow incorporate that video somewhere in the 2-day session. Get it to the database, because if you want to see how advocacy, unification of effort, true grit, generational, he's 5th generation farmer, president and of the Black Growers Association, and also a row cropper, cotton, soybeans, corn, 5th generation. Today, and I want you to hear that video. Today, he is the nation's only African-American to own a rice processing plant, modern day rice processing plant in Arkansas. He is set up to sell rice around the world. Derek, I think you probably, everybody at USDA knows PJ Haney. What's my point? My point, ladies and gentlemen, and particularly in Africa, it takes unification and a commitment to advocacy. Okay, we don't want you to be just small businesses who happen to own land. We don't want you to be small businesses aspiring, wondering, and trying to figure out when over the next 2 days here, we are deliberately intentional about giving you what it takes, how it's done, who you need to do it with, and most of all, you don't have to do it by yourself, and you shouldn't do it by yourself. This community needs to become a community. Stay committed to one another, no matter what your size is. That'll shake itself out. But to know that you're in the region of Africa, South Africa, you have ITA, you have Timothy Maurice Webster, you have our, commitment of continuing this work. Build a consortium, come back to us. You can come as an individual business, but I could tell you, forming a consortium, I'm looking for leadership. Because leadership is what it takes. Leadership is what becomes lucrative when you're in this business of advancing commodities and services and selling product. And most of all, selling your commitment to being a solution provider. That's my closing remarks on this amazing collaboration of experts.
Mr. Moore, can I say something before you go, Mr. Moore?
Yeah,
yes.
I had a comment also.
Yes.
Please.
As an African, we greatly appreciate what you guys are doing. One. I just want to point out a few things. This is coming from listening attentively to every speaker. I want us to challenge the perception that Africa needs America. It's the other way around. We have all the resources, the best fishes in the world, the best diamonds, the gold, the platinum, everything that the world needs, we have. From the north to the south, from the east to the west, in this continent of ours. I had, what is her name? Shaquana saying this is motherland. It's true. We have everything in this continent. Absolutely. What we need is the following from you guys. Stop calling yourself African Americans. You are African. Finish and clear. I'm not calling you that. Bring the machineries. Build the factories here. We'll give you land. We'll give you diamonds. We'll give you everything you need. Bring everything. You see, China has decided to come to Africa and stay here permanently. Stop staying in Washington and New York and the Bronx. You're not going to make anything there. Come here. We have so much land to plant rice that Derek, you spoke about. We can plant rice from the north to the south and feed the whole world and Mars and take it to Mars if they need it. Let me shift your paradigm. Across where I am now in Botswana, in the past 6 months, they've discovered the biggest diamonds in the world. You know what he said? It must be taken to Brussels to be polished there, and they must put a dollar price to the diamond. They can't sell it in their currency in Pula. So I'm saying, I'm challenging you guys in America. You put a consortium together. Come to Africa. Open firms here. From tire manufacturing, for battery manufacturing, for the solar system, for the Elon Musk company needs a lot of batteries. We all know we've got plenty of it here. In Zimbabwe, they've discovered the biggest lithium ion in the world. They are here. I know everything about cybersecurity, IoT, and all those other things. They are wonderful to have, but we need infrastructure. We need to build roads. We need to build, where trains will travel. We need to build airports. We need to build homes. We need to build dams. We need to be sustainable. You have access to American dollars. Bring the money here. I can assure you, Africa is ready. She's been ready from inception to welcome you guys back with all your resources, your education, and your exposure to the world. Bring it here. From Sierra Leone, Cote d'Ivoire. I mean, Congo is the richest country in the world. You guys know that. The richest country in the world. But look what they've done to it. Your country. I don't want to go into politics, but we can get anything we want from there. So let's shift this focus on saying, Africa, you must come together. I mean, I'll name one of the greatest president this country has ever had. He who feeds you controls you. That's Thomas Sankara. We are tired. We don't want aid anymore, Mr. Moore. We will give you the raw materials. You convert them. NVIDIA, we can take on NVIDIA tomorrow morning if we want to. We can build our Alibaba. We can build our Amazon. We can build our Facebook tomorrow. Yeah. We have the youngest population in the world. Let us shift our thinking, Mr. Moore. Take advantage. You guys, it's time that you take advantage of our continent. Every African in America must come back home and change and invest and really give back. After 300 years, I think it's time you guys must come back home now. We must give you African names. You must come and settle down here. Bring the technology. Let's take on the world. That's my input. I hope I didn't offend anyone, Mr. Moore.
Goto, I accept your challenge. I'm asking my colleagues, do they accept?
If I
Shaq,
can I would like to
Melissa,
just quickly respond.
JR.
Not only do I accept, I have already started. So just within the last 18 months, I've been on the continent several times. I've been throughout South Africa, Durban, Cape, Joburg, and I've been there probably 3 or 4 times. I've been to Nigeria, Ghana. I've been to Zimbabwe. I've been to Zambia just recently in March, and in a couple of days or hours or so, I'll be leaving for Nigeria to teach AGOA and workshops. As you all may know, Nigerian Fashion Week is upon us. And what is happening is Nigeria has beautiful textiles and apparel and very fashionable. And I think it's a high demand for that level of quality product and fashion in the US, in my opinion. And I'm not a fashionista. I know throughout my markets that there is a demand. What we're seeing is a lot of these textiles and apparel are extremely complicated to import into the US market, because textiles and apparel is highly regulated by customs and under AGOA with rules of origin, percentages of rules of origin, where these goods are actually coming from, how they are assembled. I always use the example of terminology. Often, we had a client that was importing goods that was a hoodie, and there's no such terminology as a hoodie. So I use that example all the time. U.S. Customs does not speak like a consumer. U.S. Customs has its own terminology. So I feel welcome when I'm on the continent. I feel invited. I feel hugged. I've been well supported on the continent, no matter where it is that I've been. Not only do I feel supported, I feel needed in regard to the resource and the expertise that I bring to the region. But I also, like you said in your opening statement, I don't feel like the American that is just needed, or America not knowing where the need is. Because when I go there, I am fulfilled spiritually. I am fulfilled holistically. And I just feel like it's a space that only the continent was able to give me. And then in return, I want to make sure that my expertise is leveraged so that they can be competitive. So thank you for your comment, sir.
So, and I would like to add, I am similar to Shaq. So we do quite a bit of work on the continent, and we definitely are well received. And it's a two-way street, right? So there's talent and resources on the continent. There's talent, and there are talents and resources here in the US. And what is key is that we don't have a colonial mindset. And that's the beauty of what I love and what we're doing here in this group. our mindset is that service and working is a two-way street. And so being able to work, for example, like with the African Tax Administration Forum, ATAF, and one of the things that was so great is when we started and we reached out to them, and they're working with all of the tax administrations there, and they said, Melissa, we need to start a bank of talent that you all have in the US, because we have to have talent to come in to help us as we're doing tax through the different countries. And we end up going to Denmark, we're going to Norway, we're going to France in order to get this talent. We want to come to the US and get the talent from our own community, from the Black community, and we pay. So there's definitely resources and opportunities that are happening as we go through this process. And we just have so many of our businesses that have been able to be quite successful. I'm just going to share, my father is a Black farmer. So I'm a girl from Georgia, grew up on farm, all those kinds of things. And so, I moved to the north to go to school. And so when I'm reaching out, asking him about Black farmers, I'm just going to my daddy, because I don't, know, he was the president of the Black Farmers Association and all those kind of things from where we are in Georgia. And he knows nothing about going to the continent to serve. But being able to take his talent, what he knows, put it together, because he's done this for over 60 years. You understand? So there is a great desire to be able to serve. And so for those of us in the middle who know how to take the talent from one region to the other region and bridge it together, that's, Keith, what I was hearing you say, which was so exciting to me, because it's so in line with, we definitely agree that on the continent, we have to be there. And last thing I'll just say, that we are very clear on this end about China competition. And it's no love relationship where the U.S. government is saying, let us help you to grow your business into the millions and the billions. No, it's China competition. And so we are in the best position to be able to grow businesses on both sides of the world, so that we can be able to be successful and build generationally, which I think is so key, because you do have such a young population on the continent that you can take what we've learned in the US and the talents that we have, and you can be able to serve both regions of the world.